COM105, Fall 2015, Chapter 10, Advertising. Advertising today is considerably different than it was even a decade ago. How has new technology changed how advertisers use persuasive messages to sell products? For your consideration, where do our norms come from in advertising? How did the industry evolve to where it is now? What historical events have been critical in the development of advertising? What did advertisers not grasp during the early days of the internet? Where does most online ad revenue now come from? Advertising. Advertising can be traced back to ancient Greece using handbills. Handbills are short announcements or advertisements, typically printed on a single sheet and handed out in public areas, hence the term handbill. As production and distribution became easier, so did information spread. As technology has advanced, advertising has advanced along with it. With industrialization came easier printing, and with easy, cheap printing, distribution of handbills became easier than ever. Here you can see one of the first known public advertisements. This is for a brothel in Ephesus, Turkey. Think about the different types of handbills. You have the oldest type, the handwritten handbill, as would have been found in ancient Greece. Each handbill needs to be written out. That takes a lot of time. Next you have the printed handbill. These can be printed out quickly and efficiently, saving much time in production. Today we have electronic handbills. Think of the ads you see on your Facebook feed. Although they still need to be produced by advertisers, handing them out, so to say, is much faster because it happens all digitally. Further, when one person clicks or likes an electronic handbill, think about how that handbill might then be disseminated to people in that person's social network. How much easier is it to spread your message using an electronic handbill than a written one? With industrialization came the penny press, and with the penny press came an explosion in the popularity of newspapers. The term penny press refers to cheap, mass-produced newspapers that came into being in the late 19th century. Newspapers became cheap and easy to print, meaning that almost anyone could afford to buy a newspaper. With the penny press, it meant that more newspapers could be disseminated. That meant a larger audience. A larger audience meant more income, more markets for newspapers. We don't want to have to pay for news. We want the news, but we don't want to pay much for it. Even with the cheap penny press, someone still needs to pay for newspapers, so who was paying for them if not the consumers? These newspapers made most of their profits from selling advertising space, not from selling the paper itself. Advertising spaces in newspapers are called news holes, and that they are the spaces in between the news set aside for advertising. Pick up a newspaper today and see if you can find the news holes. Look at the newspaper on the right. You can see how there are news articles and then advertisements. The advertisements are news holes. This is spaces where news would normally go, that's set aside just for advertisement. CMC in action. Quiz show scandal. The entire affair was found so unsavory by the American public that it led to a congressional hearing by the House Committee on Legislative Oversight. Contestants from several game shows testified to having been coached, and while no one went to jail over the hoax, it was seen by many as an act of betrayal toward the public. In the 1950s, a number of game shows were revealed to have been rigged by advertisers. That is, the advertisers told contestants how to answer questions. Although advertisers can no longer sponsor an entire program, they can still sponsor a program with various products in the ad space in between. Following the quiz show scandal, the FCC determined that advertisers could only sell products in 30 to 60-second breaks between content. This gave way to the modern commercial break that you're probably familiar with. Thinking about modern media, Google was a major draw for advertisers, given its popularity. But Google's net ratings are what determine how far ads reach. That means that advertisers paying for ad space in Google also look to Google to determine how effective their ads are. As such, are Google and other major online companies entering the same territory as the advertisement game shows seen in the 1950s? Think back to agenda setting, and remember that it's not so much how the media makes us think, but what they make us think about. What's important is determined by what we see in the media. In the past, many television markets that is, areas in which television was broadcast, had only a few stations available for access. In more recent years, access to cable television and the internet means that people can access a huge variety of news and entertainment, not just from their local television market, but from all over the world. As more and more Americans came to rely on television as their primary source for news and entertainment, advertisers developed new conventions to attract consumers. Mass communication broke audience into these marketing segments, but newer media has challenged this. That is, now we can access Shanghai Daily instead of just the Daily Athenaeum. One of these selling tactics is called a unique selling point, or USP. A USP is a technique used by advertisers in which one characteristic of a product is promoted so as to set it apart from other, or even seemingly identical products. What is West Virginia University's USP? What do you think of when you think of our school? Do you think of the flying WV? Maybe the Mountaineer? Or maybe just the phrase, "let's go," makes you think of WV. Can you think of any other unique selling points of our university? CMC in action. They don't melt, but how do they taste? What candy melts in your mouth, but not in your hand? You probably know from that USP that the candy is M&Ms. But plenty of other candies don't melt in your hand either, right? This USP doesn't explain much about the candy itself. It doesn't tell us how it tastes. But it does serve as a catchy way of making us remember M&Ms in contrast to other candies. So just how is advertising different in new media technologies than it was in the past? With the advent of the internet, advertisers were eager to jump on board to sell products. The problem was that at first, no one really knew what they were doing. They created advertisements for the internet in much the same fashion that they created TV commercials and news holes in newspapers. That is, mass communication rather than interactive communication. Advertisers began to develop metrics, such as click-through ads, that determine how effective an advertisement is based on how many clicks it receives. These banner ads, as it turned out, were pretty unpopular and rather ineffective. People tend to click on less than 1% of banner ads. Given the ineffectual nature of banner ads, advertisers began to use sponsored links. When you type something into Google, the first results you see will be sponsored links by advertisers, most of the time. That means you see paid content before you see unpaid content. Unlike banner ads, these ads are for something you were looking for in the first place because you Googled it. You're more likely to click on these because they're what you wanted to click on anyway. Think about how ads work on Facebook. Have you ever noticed how the ads that you see on your page tend to be for things that you like or have bought recently? When you like something on Facebook, advertisers get that data. That means when you do just about anything online, advertisers know about it. This is called big data, and it's a major way in which advertisers create specific ads targeted for individual people. So just what is big data? It's the increasing focus of the electronic amalgam of enormous amounts of consumer data in order for advertisers to target consumers. What does that mean practically? Picture this. A father with a high school daughter is concerned with having the talk with her. One day he goes to his mailbox and finds several coupons from Target for diapers. The coupons are addressed to her. The father becomes worried that she was being encouraged to become pregnant by advertisers. It turns out that she had been targeted by her recent purchases. She bought certain vitamins and skin cream that are frequently used by pregnant women, and based on that data, Target assumed that she was pregnant and might also be interested in diapers. As for the daughter, it turns out that she wasn't being encouraged to become pregnant, she already was. An increasing concern regarding social media and advertising is the volume of personal data created by users that is used by advertisers to target them with ads, such as big data mentioned before. Big data is different from other types of advertising data in 4 ways. First is volume. There's just so much more of it. Advertisers have access to enormous amounts of information about you, your purchases, things you like, and things you don't like. Velocity, in that information can be collected very quickly using the internet and other types of new medias. Variety, given that advertisers can know just about anything that you purchase or have purchased or want to purchase, you have much more variety in the types of ads that can be customized for you. And veracity, finally, can you trust it? How do we know if the information being provided by advertisers that we provide to advertisers is real? Given the case of the daughter mentioned before, how could big data really provide information as to whether or not she really was pregnant? Think of all the different types of media that you use. Do you think we replace old media with new media? That's called the replacement hypothesis, and it predicts that we gain access to new media technology, and then as such, old media technology is phased out. Is that really true? The theory of media niche dictates that we don't replace media, we merely repurpose it. Instead of radio, now we have podcasts. Instead of TV, we might watch Netflix or Hulu. Have you heard of Google Glasses? It's a wearable piece of computer technology that allows you to access the internet through a transparent user interface at all times. As we gain more and more access to media daily, we will probably see more integrated marketing. Integrated marketing is the use of multiple media channels to promote a product. For example, let's say a new movie is coming out. Advertisers might have an interactive website, television commercials, online ads, and affiliations with products to make it harder to ignore the movie's release, even if you wanted to. The more media we use and the more integrated media becomes in our daily lives, the more we're going to receive advertising in different forms. Chapter summary. Advertising has been around for centuries. Models of advertiser-funded media models began with the dawn of the penny press. Today's media consumer is more active, using more channels simultaneously to find more information. Questions for the crowd. Think back to an incredibly memorable commercial. What was its unique selling proposition, its USP? Have you ever purchased a good or signed up for a service based on a Facebook ad? What was that experience like? Share your answers to these questions on Twitter using the hashtag #MediaAsTool hashtag or in our official Facebook group, linked below. You might even get an answer from the authors directly.